question to?
I would like to direct my question to Mr. Poland.
All right, what, you stand up?
And that, you know, honesty, integrity, and is very important to the voters. We want people that are going to tell us the truth. And I'd like to ask what your voting record shows that you have voted Democrat, and not that long ago. So I'd like to know, are you really a Republican or are you a Democrat?
Well, that voting record, first of all, I'd like to think that I'm a smart man. And the only time in my life that I can remember voting Democrat was when I was superintendent of Chattooga County Schools. And I think anyone in here would agree that if you have an opportunity to vote for your bosses, you should take advantage of it. And there were no Republicans on the ballot in the primary.
What year was that, sir?
I think that was 08, could have been 10, and it could have been both.
This was in the national election that you voted for a Democrat.
But the school board was on the ballot, and there were no Republicans on the school board.
Well, when you vote in a primary, you're declaring yourself one way or the other, whether you're Democrat or Republican.
I understand that. You know, there's some Republicans over in Fulton County too that have exercised their right.
I'm not interested in the Fulton County people.
I understand that. I
you.
understand that, but sometimes you have strategies that you need to use. The Republicans in Fulton County voted Democrat to get rid of Cynthia McKinney. So, you know, sometimes there's good reason for doing that, and I think I had a good reason because the local elections had no Republican candidates.
Well, since you brought up Chattooga County,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a report here from various people from Chattooga County that are saying that when you were superintendent of schools for a couple of years, but that you gave your wife a job and you gave your friends jobs, and that you left the county in debt to the tune of $1.75 million. Can you explain that?
I'd like to know where you got your facts, because if you'll check the State Department of Education's records, the county's not in debt. And we
Maybe not now, but they were when you left.
No, ma'am, they were not.
Okay.
Please check the State Department of Records and not Chattooga Topics. As far as my wife having a job, the previous superintendent's wife had a job much higher level than my wife's job, and the current superintendent has a job.
You know, okay.
Yeah,
I think I got my answers.
Yeah,
Thank
I don't want any candidate to feel like they're being attacked. I want everybody to have an opportunity. I believe he's going to be hanging around after the meeting, so maybe y'all can follow back up on that. Charlie.
Before the 10 minutes is over, I'm 70 years old, fixed income, and there are a lot of people like me. I'd like each candidate to tell me what they're going to do for us.
Okay, Dwight, since you're standing, why don't you go ahead and take the first crack at it?
Well, you know, being a candidate that's closer to your age, I can understand your concern. First of all, we need to make sure that the tax breaks and stuff that we allowed the voters to decide on, that we allowed the voters to continue doing that. And I think that we'll protect our older citizens that way. You know, in Canton, there's a contested council race right now. One of the hot topics is because the garbage rates were increased for the senior citizens. And you know, I've assured senior citizens that I'm behind them. When I was a young child, my father told me, he said, son, always respect your elders, be kind to them. They can help you in life. And you know, I think our elders are still helping us in life. They're volunteering more than any other group. They're getting out there helping the communities. They've paid their debt. You know, I feel like that we need to give them every opportunity to retain the funds that they have so that they can continue their quality of life for the rest of their life.
Thank you.
He asked all of us. Did you not, Charlie?
I did.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I don't think that the seniors paid a debt of gratitude. They have, and thank you, Charlie. There is a big difference between your age, so I'm going to be transparent and say, I don't think I'm close to your age. I don't want to pretend like I'm close to your age no more than I want to pretend I'm like anybody else. The reality is Canton's a mess. You got a boondoggle situation going up there with recycling and so on. I don't know if that took care of the time that you were serving in planning committee or not, but Canton's a very poor model. You talk to people of Canton, they got a mess. Bartow County has done a great job. Woodstock's done a good job. Other areas in this district have done a good job. So let's get that transparent right now and let's not pretend. What do we need to do for the seniors? A lot of the seniors like to get out. They don't want to be held to a little box. They're not interested in being locked in a retirement community and say, I can't get around. Transportation is important to them. If Charlie, and he's the one that brought the question up, if he wants to go to a ball game, he does not want to take 3 hours getting down to the field to do a ball game. He wants to spend time with his grandkids. He wants to be able to do the things he wants to do with volunteer. He wants to then go to a ball game. We need to work on transportation okay? That's for everybody, but that's important to seniors. Let's get a lot of the tax stuff out of the way that affect seniors. I'm going back to what we talked about earlier. You got Social Security, you got so many of the things that we have so much legislation that's in a way, that's peeling away stuff that we don't even know about. Why is that happening? Because we don't have transparency in government. Everything goes back to transparency. You got Obamacare, the #1 thing that's really going to hose the seniors. Anybody in this room that's a fan of Obamacare, I'll tell you the same thing that I've said to some others this week. Which might surprise you when I first say this, but then listen the whole way through. The reason we have Obamacare is because we as Republicans didn't do what we were supposed to do. Let's take responsibility. And when I say as you do as a Republican, a true Republican takes responsibility for themselves. And I'm sorry I've taken 10 minutes, so maybe you'll grant us more, but this is important. Pre-existing conditions should have never been an issue. The fact that a young individual, and I don't mean to pick on you, Matt, but you're 25, a young individual wants to stay on his parents' policy while they're in school should have been done by us Republicans. So we gave the Democrats a great opportunity to say, hey, we're going to drive this truck through this wide open hole. And you look at it and you go, oh, guess what? You know what the #1 person that's going to be affected by Obamacare? The
Seniors.
That's what we can do, Charlie. We can get our butts in gear and say, we're going to nullify this, the 11 different taxes that are in there, we're going to start pulling that out, and we can preserve some health care for people like you. Sorry, I didn't think of that.
So the safety net for the senior citizens is growing very thin. What we need to do is, I've made a pledge to have an open door to retirement benefits, Social Security, and veterans benefits. People that have put so much in, they need to be able to rely on it. Another thing is we got to get, alluded to Obamacare, that needs to get gone, just period. That is a strain on the senior citizens. And then also, economic development. Low-paying jobs are going to take away from those benefits as well. And not a lot of people are talking about that. Low-paying job is going to pay out about $1.15 in taxes, but only take in $1. So we need to make strides to bring high-paying jobs, high-skilled jobs into the communities, into the district, to where those benefits that you put in, a lot of senior citizens put in, aren't going to get depleted. So it's a very simple answer, but it's a powerful one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it's 10:30. We're going to take one more question. I know each of the candidates has indicated that they're going to be around afterwards to take additional questions. I want to be able to allow those that have to get out of here to get. Sir, if you'd like to ask a question.
I'm a little disappointed. Main thing here is the economy. I haven't heard any candidate walk up here with an outlined budget. I'm going to vote for you all to know what you're going to fund, what level you're going to fund it, why you're going to fund it at that level. I don't know what you're going to cut, how much you're going to cut it, why you're going to cut it, what you're going to eliminate, and why you're going to eliminate it.
All right.
Well, I'll start that one off. The economy, that is a very, very strong point. We have to get to, first you have to get to zero-based budget. So no family starts off with last year's budget and then chops away from there. It doesn't work. You gotta start from the ground up. You gotta bring audits into it. So with Joshua's law, they're supposed to bring a certain percentage of ticket amount to that specific law. Well, they clumped it into general funding. That's not supposed to happen. Tires, disposal tires, supposed to be $1 per tire. That was jumped into general funding as well. So the first steps is, we do need to cut a lot of wasteful spending, but we need to know where that spending is going in each individual segment. So part of that, got to get the audits in, and it needs to be an outside. You can't have the hen house and the fox watching it. So you got to get an outside source auditing those funds and knowing where can we cut the budgets, where can we make sure that our taxes are being used in the right proportion. So that's your answer there for the taxes part. Now the economy part, like I alluded to earlier, that economic development, part of that is, do we have a landscape in this district, in Georgia, that's viable for big companies that are high skill paying, high, want to come? Is it a tax structure? Is it a transportation structure? Are we ready for that to happen? And that's what we have to really focus on and have a 30-year plan rather than the road's done, let's go to another road. Do we have an idea for rail system? Do we have an idea for, just in Cartersville with Lake Point coming? You know, if they're half wrong, that's 40,000 people a weekend. Do we have the infrastructure in Cartersville to handle that? Or are we going to be a one-stop shop that they're going to come in, hit all the traffic and go, okay, I can't handle it here, so now we're going to go to Chastain Road, we're going to go to Barrett Parkway, and now you lose. So that's what really needs to happen.
Matt, they're going to Emerson, not Carterville.
Like Doug's will fill up real fast.
Well, you know, it's hard to say what you're gonna cut, because I'm afraid we've done too much cutting without looking at ramifications. For example, we recently closed some prisons in the state that saved the state $12 million. That sounds good to start with. But what we were not told is that those prisoners are now being sent to local jails, and your property tax millage rate is paying the difference between the $20 the state pays for housing that prisoner per day and the $35 to $41, depending on what system you're in, that it costs to house that prisoner. So, you know, that looked like a good cut on the surface, but then the local homeowners ended up footing the bill for that. We need to look where we have regulations that hamper business. For example, we put a lot of money in training and development, and that's good. A lot of businesses really appreciate that. Some businesses don't need training and development. They have their own staff and they work with everything. But we might not be able to attract that business because they don't need that money in that category, but could use it somewhere else, and we can't use it anywhere else. So we need flexibility in what we have at the local level. As Bruce mentioned earlier, you know, the local people know more about what to do with our money than anyone else. You know, having to answer to local people for a budget is something that I've had to do for a long time. And, you know, when you have to call a good teacher in and talk to them and tell them that they're not going to be back because you don't have the funds to pay them, but you also know that you can't go to the taxpayers when they're paying all they can afford to pay and tell them that you need more money. So, you know, it's hard to say exactly what you'll do until you study the ramifications. And I think too many times we're making tax cuts or making tax increases without looking at the ramifications of our actions. Bruce.
Dwight just said that he, for many years, had to deal with things that everybody else had to present to him. And I would say that's, again, why there's a difference. The reality of it is we need jobs, okay? Jobs create revenue. So I would be remiss if I said to you, I'm so arrogant enough, or any one of these candidates are arrogant enough, that we're going to say, well, we're going to go down and people that are serving the capital, this is what they're doing wrong, we're going to fix it. Because those that live in glass houses should not throw rocks. There's a principle there, right? So I don't really know what that looks like down there other than what you and I hear. But I can tell you this, we don't have transparency. That's a fact. You can see that whether you like the media or not. Personally, I think the media is biased, but you get enough of them together, they're saying the same message, we have a lack of transparency down there. We have waste. We know that. As a business owner, as someone that has created jobs, has created companies, has generated wealth within the companies, you look at every line item to see if it's beneficial. If it's not, you look at the cause and effect of eliminating it. And the effect supersedes what you're trying to do, you may not choose to cut it. If it doesn't, you cut it. We have not done that on a government level. What we've done is we have, as Matt said, we have moved things that were around without being transparent. If it's a dedicated fund, or designated fund, excuse me, that's where it should stay, and that's what it should be used for. If it's not, it goes into the general fund. The problem we wind up with is, and I believe Dwight was alluding to this, is education, since that's his wheelhouse. Best I can understand, that's your only wheelhouse. Education took a hit. Why? It's about 50, depends on who you talk to. If it's K through 12, it's about 52, 53% of the general fund. Some say 48, some say 56. Well, of course it's going to take one of the biggest hits. Okay? That's just incremental. But do you also know that we have a surplus sitting down there? I just talked to Joel Thornton, you didn't mind me bringing it up. There's a surplus of money sitting there that we could do something with. Now, I'm not saying we throw money at education, but it sure was a surprise to me we got a surplus of money sitting there that we could put back $300 million. Where the heck is that money going? Why is it sitting there? Are we drawing 10% interest? I doubt that. I can only get 1% and I serve on a board of a bank. That's the kind of stuff we need to get, whoever's elected needs to get in there and have the ability to immediately impact. And say, hey, let's look at this, and let's go through this and see, is this really what it was intended to do? And if it is, okay. If it's not, why does it exist? That's going back to that layers of government we've talked about before. On jobs, you create jobs in a robust economy, and guess what it generates? Revenue. And guess where that revenue goes? To the general fund. So I don't know anyone can really answer your question other than we need to get rid of waste, be transparent, and generate jobs.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'd like to thank all of our candidates for coming out this morning and letting us get to know them a little bit better, and for a very lively discussion. We appreciate that. I do